Welcome, fellow anglers, to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Each week, I bring you fishing tips, stories, gear reviews, and more to help you catch big fish, maximize your time on the water, and overall, just have fun. Welcome back, guys. This week, I'm going to cover two topics. First, what it's like to run a charter people-wise. Now, I'm going to talk about the real truth. You're not going to see it on YouTube or on any TV show that's out there. And then I'm going to give my advice on how to handle keeping weeds off your baits. So I'm going to go over my Ballyhoo Rig with you guys, what I'm currently using out there right now. And we have a lot of sargassum weed down here in the Keys, more so than I've ever seen. And I've been hearing that it's up and down the eastern seaboard. So I hope what I'm going to go over later in the podcast is going to help you guys out a little bit. Okay. So some may say I'm a little intense. But I actually do give a shit about my clients and if you catch fish or not. I want you to catch fish and have a great time. I had a repeat client, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that I wasn't as intense with this time around as I usually am. My wife revealed that because he's meditating now, and that's the truth. So I am meditating, and I do it daily, sometimes twice a day. So sometimes I hear that I'm intense, and then sometimes I guess I'm calmer, whatever. I truly do love fishing, and believe it or not many captains do like fishing. In fact, they don't like to fish. And that is true. That's the true reason why many of them build towers on smaller center consoles like mine and bring along a mate. Just saying. I can make a whole podcast about it, but I'm not going to get into it. Now, 90% of my clients are repeat clients. I take on a handful of new clients each year, which is great. Most of them are referrals from my regular clients, and then I'll pick up a handful of new clients a year through other avenues. But the first thing I do is I get my crew involved as a team. I work on this every day, and it starts when the client books a trip. My wife says sometimes I give people way too much information about what I do, but I do this because I don't want there to be any surprises with clients. In other words, I don't want to bait and switch somebody. I don't want to tell them I can do something and not be able to do it, so I give them the reality of what I can and can't do. And then they can decide whether or not they want to book with me. Now, my worst enemy is YouTube. And guys, it's not the reality, as most of these guys on there don't fish every day professionally. In fact, a lot of them have copycat syndrome right now, and it's strong on YouTube nowadays. It's so much it just makes me sick to my stomach to watch. And I don't normally watch it anymore because it really does make me sick. Now, enough with that. It's my job as a captain to figure things out for the day. And then as we roll into things, I do my best to get all my anglers fishing and involved in the process. From chumming, the baiting, the catching, the gaffing, the netting the fish. But, sometimes Mother Nature, she doesn't, she throws in some curveballs and makes it challenging. And you got to deal with different currents and the conditions and how many people I take. In other words, there's lots of different challenges that happen, and as far as how many lines I can fish, what I can fish for, what I'm going to do on the day. For example, just recently I was challenged on how many rods I can fish at once on the bottom. And this leads me to my next story. When clients go rogue on my charters, yes, rogue. Now, when clients go rogue on my charters, something always breaks. And they never have a decent catch as they don't want to listen because they know better, obviously, because they were on a charter with such and such way back in 1997. So, or they fished the Keys when they were a kid, and this is how they did it. Now, if I had a nickel for every time someone told me they knew what they were doing, and they didn't, I would be rich. So, most of the time, these guys that go rogue, they end up fouling my prop. They end up dropping a rod in the water. But the prop thing really disturbs me because they do it quite often, these guys. And it just seems to be that this type of person, and it seems like they just do it on purpose because they're not very bright. When I tell somebody they can't put a rod in the water at an angle where the current's moving, they usually foul up the prop. They think that they have a big fish. Like, Captain, I got a big fish. And no, the line's spooled, and they got all the line around the prop, and it's all braid. And what ends up happening is that I can't get the line off or the prop moving, and then sea tow. And then it costs me a whole bunch of money, more than what the paid charter is, because the client pretty much like was negligent, and it cost me a bunch of money because he was negligent, and we had to get towed home. So because of his stupidity. Now, everything I do it for a reason. My boat fishes differently than others, and I do my absolute best on each trip. I had a couple trips where people even grabbed the high-speed trolling rods out of the gunnels and wanted to hold the rods while I was trolling between 15 and 20 knots. Now, this is when I used to do a lot of high-speed trolling, but for this reason, I can't do a lot of it anymore because people just don't listen, and then it scares me when somebody grabs a rod out of a gunnel doing 20 miles an hour. Because what happened on this particular charter, I think it actually happened twice. I try to put this stuff out of my brain, but it still kind of haunts me, which is why I'm bringing it up. So I had a charter where a guy picked the rod out of the gunnel, and he wanted to hold the rod while we were high speeding. I told him, it's not the brightest idea, because I was being nice. Not the brightest idea, because when a wahoo hits it, he's going to be doing almost 60 miles an hour, and we're doing 20, and only bad things can happen. You're not going to have enough. You think that you're strong until this happens, and that fish is going to rip the rod right out of your hands. Well, he put the rod back in the gunnel, and then when I was back looking for the fish and I wasn't looking, he went ahead and grabbed it out of the gunnel again. And I happened to look down on the sonar, and I'd seen the wahoo, and I said, I was getting ready to turn and say, get ready, and boom, man, the guy, there goes the rod, because the wahoo hit the rod, and there goes the rod right out of the guy's hands. $1,200 outfit, went into the water. Client thought it was no big deal. In fact, he laughed, and then there was a dad and a son on the trip, and the dad started laughing, thinking I was made of money and I would be able just to replace it. And no, they didn't offer to, at that time I didn't have a policy in place for negligence, which I do now, and so he refused to pay for the rod. Anyways, I didn't want to make a big scene about it, so I moved on. But like I said, that one still haunts me. And then, I think this was about a week and a half ago, I had a client get ugly on me. It was early in the morning, and it was hot, and some people just can't deal with the heat, and they have they have back problems, and I talked to the guy the night before, and he was saying he was having some back problems, but if he took his meds, he was going to be all right. And I was like, oh man, this doesn't sound very good. And then I couldn't sleep the night before because I kind of knew something was going to be wrong. So, the next day it was hot, no wind. And I've learned that some people, they just can't deal with the heat as well. So they just, it makes them irritable, especially when they get into the beer, especially if they've been fishing a couple days prior. And most of the guys that come down, they'll book a couple trips down a marathon with other charters. And then this one just happened where I had a guy. They booked a couple full days down a marathon. They went tarpon fishing. They didn't catch any tarpon, so they were pissed off about that. And then they booked another charter, and they didn't catch many fish on that charter either. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? So the fishing's supposed to be pretty good down there. So you get the feeling that something happened on that charter when you're not catching fish. But I kept a positive attitude. So we get out there, and the guy got irritable. So he was the older guy, and then what happened was he had gotten to the beer, and I saw him chug a beer and then take a couple pain meds out of his bag, and then the guy just wouldn't get out of his deck chair to fish, and he kept on me about weird yellowtail fish, and the yellowtails weren't cooperating very well, so I was trying to get into the groove and get the fish biting, but he just wouldn't. He was just relentless on me. Now those guys caught nothing. But a cold one out of the cooler, a nasty sunburn, and one hell of a headache. Oh, my gosh, yeah, because it was hot, man. And the ocean was not cooperating that day. It was definitely a seakeeper day, not the day to be having a cold one on the water. So, yeah, guys, it's not easy, but I work at it every day. As being a good captain is more than just catching big fish. It requires being good with the people. And my percentage of bad clients is very low, and I'm very grateful, but I also do my best to screen folks on the phone nowadays. I've just learned I need to screen them, and if I don't feel that they're going to be right for the boat, I just don't take them. I would rather take people that are a good fit for my charters. I want people to have fun and make sure I'm the right fit for them. And hey, guys, make sure you tell your wife that the boat doesn't have a bathroom or air conditioning. And just tell them how big the boat is before she shows up at the dock. Also tell her about what the plan, either wife or girlfriend. I mean, it doesn't matter. Also tell her what the seas are doing. Some wives, like my wife, would rather stay at the pool and have a nice lunch. I don't force her to go out so I can increase my catch limits either. Don't bring her along because you think you get to keep more fish. It's just not how it works, guys, and you're going to end up jinxing yourself. So I have a lot of guys that bring their wives along thinking that, I can keep another 10 limits of snapper. That never happens, guys. So get that out of your mind right now, because usually you are going to jinx yourself. I had a few years ago, why I'm saying this, a few years ago, I had a guy bring his newlywed wife, and she didn't, the seas were really rough. There was no bathroom, and his wife got extremely sick, and he ignored her in the front of the boat. And let's just put it like this: it was crazy, and she started to cry. And I asked the guy. I made sure that the guy knew that his wife was upset and sick. And the guy said, "Oh, she'll be fine. Just leave her there." And I was like, okay, these guys are newlyweds. I go, how long did you know your wife before you got married? Oh, we just, I've known her for a month. I was like, oh, dude. I go, you are so in trouble. So anyways, we ended up catching some nice yellowtail, and the poor girl was in the front. She was suffering. And finally, I had to pull the plug. I was like, I'm just going to, I know you guys booked a 3/4 day, but we need to get her home. She is not doing good. And she's like, this girl is in tears, and I felt really bad for her. So I just took her back to the dock. And she got off the boat. She was very thankful that I called the trip, and she gave her husband the bird, her newlywed husband the bird, and grabbed her shit and ran back to the car and locked the car door. So, guys, always make sure that you let your wives know what type of boat it is, what the sea conditions are, that there's no bathroom. A lot of girls and people feel uncomfortable about going in the bathroom in the buckets. I don't have a bathroom on the boat, nor do I have air conditioning. It gets hot out there in the summer, guys. So, and as well as your kids too, just make sure that you're taking all the possible precaution with the kids. I want them to have fun. So, anyways, I fish for the whole crew. And if one person is not happy, that's going to throw a good captain off his game. And I truly want my clients to be happy. And I'm always going to tell it like it is. Now, happy wife, happy life, happy girlfriend, happy life, happy kids, happy life. You guys know the drill. Now, first, I was going to make this a 3-part series about the Ballyhoo, but I decided to postpone it until after the 4th of July. As requested from my listeners, I figured it was time to talk about my Ballyhoo rig that I'm currently running to keep the weeds off the baits. For the most part, it's doing a great job for me. We crushed it this past weekend. I ran baits through the weeds, and, man, we caught some beautiful dolphin on this full moon. First, I feel that the longer the leader, the more drag it creates in the water, and it digs into the grass, especially when you're making tight turns for dolphin, chasing dolphin, working different weed lines. The sea conditions can really hurt you when you're running longer leaders. So what I do now, and I've been doing this for years, guys, so it's just something I haven't talked about. So here you go. My standard leader length when I'm running through heavy grass is 12 to 15 inches max leader of number 7 single strand wire. Yes, wire. Wire I feel does the best in heavy grass for me. I've been using this setup for years. I troll at higher speeds, and what happens is that I don't feel that a short piece of wire can be seen by a dolphin, especially in all the grass that we have out there, and you've got all these different in the prop wash, and so guys, the commercial kingfish guys have been using short wire leaders for many years, so it's nothing new. And the guys up along the eastern seaboard, the old timers, man, they use all wire for big tunas and marlin and all that kind of stuff. So Anyway, so I'm back to being old school, and it's really working well for me. The Ballyhoo leaders that I create are connected to the main line using a 75-pound tournament-style ball-bearing swivel by Diamond. Now, these swivels do have a unique design, and they're very light. And man, do they work well. And I'm very impressed, so much so that I've ditched all the other brands. And also, too, many of you guys know this, but if you don't, an inline swivel acts like a teaser. So it looks like the Ballyhoo is chasing a small minnow. In other words, so it's an old school trick. It's been used for years. A lot of guys use giant swivels, 100-pound swivels. And I think George Poveromo outed this a few years back. But yeah, no, it's pretty much the standard for all charter guys to do this. And, guys that are in the know. So... Also, the hooks. I feel the hooks are very important. I use Mustad Tarpon hooks. They're the number is 7766-DT, number 7s, 8s, or 9s. Now, these hooks have a slight curvature towards the hook eye, and I feel that they catch less weed than the standard Mustad 3407-DT wide gap hook. And also, too, when you hook up when you hook a wahoo with a Mustad tarpon hook, these hooks are similar to the southern style tuna hooks. So take a look at them, give them a shot. But I do feel that these hooks catch less weed because of the curvature. They have a tighter gap, but when they do set, they set really nice. Now, outriggers. I feel that outriggers are a must, and run them as high as you can get them. Now, the trick is for me is I want very little main line in the water and very little leader line. I want that wire leader to come just out of the water, and I just only want the bait in the wake and on the surface. So the more line you have in the water, the more drag you're going to create, the more chances are you're going to weed up. I want the bait skipping like a kite bait across the water, and it just drives fish nuts. The fish can see that bait jump, guys. It makes a splash. So in a future podcast, I'm going to talk about how I prepare the Ballyhoo for trolling at higher speeds and for making them last longer. There is a little trick to this. Also, all my Ballyhoo are skirted with Wild Willie Sea-Witches, and I've talked about Wild Willie in several podcasts, so you can go back through and look it up. You can find him on Facebook. He makes a great witch that holds up to all sorts of conditions, and I just love his product. But I skirt all my Ballyhoo in the summer over a Wild Willie Sea-Witch, and this does help my Ballyhoos last a little longer, especially in the heavy weed. Now, let's talk about my trolling speed. My average trolling speed is 7 miles per hour each trip. I'll troll up to 11 miles an hour when I'm running with the current. If the weed gets thick, I bring the baits closer to the boat. Also, do your best to distribute the weight in your boat. If you find a problem side, that's the one that weeds up, and you guys know what I'm talking about. You're usually going to have a problem side. That's the side that's leaning heavily into the weed because of weight distribution. Mine is the live well. So you want to be able to adjust that bait accordingly, or just pull the bait until you can get it dialed in later in the game. Like I said, my problem is that one side I've got is really heavy because I've got a corner live well full of live bait. So what I do is I tend to run this side my problem side is shorter and I get a little bit higher off the water. So it just skips. So it takes a little bit of work, but this bait usually just gets crushed because the fish see the bait as it pops out of the water. It looks like it's like similar to a kite bait. So something to think about. You got to do a little bit of work and a little bit of experimentation to get stuff to work on your own boat, but this is what works for me. Now, guys, another little off-topic thing is that bigger dolphin want a faster-moving bait. If dolphin are lazy, just remember speed kills. On a slick calm day, troll quick and troll Ballyhoo. Ditch those lures. You will raise more fish on a slick calm day with dead Ballyhoo over a Sea-Witch than you will with a lure. But I'm just a little pointer, try to help you out a little bit. Now, for my short corner rods, if I'm running more than three, I'll run one out of each outrigger, then I'll run a long center. My long center goes way high up on my gunnels. Now I have high T-tops, And I really like that because that long center rod it runs way down the pipe and stays out of the way. And there's just not a lot of line drag off this long center rod, so it doesn't get weeded up very much. So what I do with the short corners, I do like to get short corner rods in there because I do feel that fish will come right up to the prop wash and investigate, and they'll move around those outrigger lines. And sometimes those are what the fish see first. So what I do is on my boat, I've got kingfish rod holders on the T-top, and they angle out a little bit. And they're high up. So what I'll do on the short corner rods is that I'll put those rods in the kingfish rod holders on the T-top. And this gets the bait skipping efficiently, and they look really pretty running out of those kingfish rod holders. So this lets me run 5 lines. And sometimes I'll throw a teaser in there. Just depends on how much weed is in there. Usually I don't run teasers in the summer because there's just way too much weed to deal with, I never put a dredge in the water in the summer because there's way too much weed and it slows me down. But that's really all I got for you guys. I hope it helps you. So I'll do my best to get some stuff up in the show notes when I have time. But in a future podcast, I'll talk more about the Ballyhoo rigging because I feel there is some things I can talk about to help you guys with the brining process. But guys, it's really about your terminal tackle setup and doing a little bit more experimentation. Don't believe everything you're seeing on YouTube. Remember, short traces of leader, not to mention that they're easier to handle in your coolers, and you can put more baits on your bait trays. All you need is 12 inches, guys. That's it. Sometimes you're going to break off 1 or 2, but I got to tell you, it's well worth it because you're going to weed up less with a short leader, short wire trace. Okay, you got to work at it. But if you have any questions, you can please email me. I'll do my best to help you out when I have a chance. Okay, last but not least, my fishing report for down here. So I had a pretty good full moon fishing, surprisingly, but not really a surprise. I figured out this pattern for dolphin last year for this moon, so I didn't leave the dock until like 11 o'clock. I got all the dolphin late in the day on 3/4 days, and that's what we focused on. We went out, we caught some nice dolphin. I think one was a little over 20 pounds, a cow. And I had all beginner fishermen, which was great. So they all got to see their first dolphin and have a good experience. They got to see the cockpit chaos at its finest. They got to see the dolphin beside the boat. So we caught a good mess of them. We threw back. We caught a lot of legal size fish, but those went back. I don't believe in keeping fish that are barely over legal because they shrink in the cooler, and you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble if that fish shrinks. So I don't keep dolphin unless they're 22 inches to the fork of the tail. So a 21-inch fish will shrink in your cooler so I know the limit is 20 inches, but it's a 22-inch minimum for me. And I really don't have any problem, guys, catching fish that are, over 22 inches. I use rig Ballyhoo to pick out the bigger fish, and then I get the fish up beside the boat, and we use live I like to use live bait to pick them out. So yeah, we caught a mess of good fish, and we had a hell of a good time on a couple of 3/4 days. And then I had a couple bottom fishing days. We did pretty well. On Saturday night, I had a half. The fish, we went black grouper fishing, and we caught some beastly black groupers in a couple hours, and we had a cooler full. We caught some dog snappers. We caught some yellowtails. We caught a whole bunch of mess of fish, and the current is ripping. So be prepared. Make sure you guys are bringing a lot of chum, because if you're only bringing 25 pounds of chum, it's only going to last you maybe 20 minutes. The current's moving well over. Current's moving really quick, guys. So your chum's going really fast. And I'm using our new Rodan 36-volt trolling motor, 84-inch shaft. Man, that thing kicks ass. I'm spot locking on small spots. I'm doing a lot of stuff, so I'm going to talk about that in the future. So that's really all I got for the insider fishing report for myself. So I got a couple days off here, then I'll get back at it here in the middle of the week, and then I'll be fishing through the July 4th holiday. Next, I've got Elliot London, my buddy that owns bait strips, he sent me a report from the Hillsborough Inlet, man. The dude's been slaying. Oh, man. Hillsborough Inlet, man, in the summer, it's just one hell of a place to fish. I've learned this a few years ago from my buddies that fish up there. The wahoo just like to congregate up there in the summer, and so do just everything, the kingfish and the big tunas. So he sent me this report on Instagram. He said, fishing out of Hillsborough Inlet this week has been insane. The kingfish are everywhere on the reef, between 80 to 140 foot. On Wednesday, he limited out on 12 kingfish, all on planers with SeaWitches and bait strips. www.baitstrips.com. These bait strips, man, are crush it up there. The fish love them. So Elliot said he decided to run offshore to about 650 feet. He found a nice weed line loaded with mahi and triple tail. He boxed 7 mahi on the troll. And while we were doing so, he picked off 3 wahoo on the planer and the surface baits. All these fish ate the same SeaWitch and bait strip combo as before, blue and white and hot pink. Thursday morning, he ran out 800 feet for dolphin and managed 15 keepers and endless amounts of peanut-sized dolphin. On Friday, he said he headed out and trolled some planers. He was using the same blue and white and hot pink SeaWitch combos that you can purchase through bait strips. And he got a few kings and a really nice wahoo, as well as a few other bonito. And those bites came between 80 to 200 feet, with a wahoo biting 130 feet in the past 3 days. In the past 3 days, he says he's gone 4 for 5 on wahoo. Now, they should be around the whole week because of the full moon. And then Saturday morning, the kingfish were snapping. He got a 6-person limit in a couple hours, trolling the same set, ups and above. And he says, the fishing's on fire. And from what it sounds like, man, he's on fire, man. If you're able to get out for a few hours, you should definitely take advantage of it. And he sent me a cool picture of the wahoo that he caught on a bait strip, and I'll try to get that posted for you guys. So, nice job, brother, and thanks for the fishing report, and keep crushing them. So, guys, Elliot buried in a little tip for you guys in case you overlooked it. What happens is in the summer is the wahoo, like they'll say, they'll move off into cooler waters. And down here in the Keys, those fish will push out a little deeper. Right now we have a nasty algae bloom down here inside of 300 feet. And the fish tend to push out, those wahoo, they tend to push out in those deeper waters around that 300 to 650, and then you'll get an occasional one while you're looking for dolphin. And it happens on this moon every year, especially down here in the Keys. This year I didn't get one because I didn't fish in the morning, and I didn't put any baits down deep because of the weed. So, but it sounds like Elliot was able to get a couple baits down deep. He got a little deeper offshore and was able to manage to get a couple planers down along a nice weed line. And if you're looking for wahoo this time of year on the full moons, offshore is, that 650 ledge is, especially down here in the Keys, is a good place to look for the wahoo. But I'm not in wahoo mode right now. I'm looking for dolphin, so I don't run many baits down deep, but I am wiring up baits for that incidental catch, which I see more and then sometimes into the early afternoon on the backside of the full moon. So seeing this quite often, especially on this past full moon. So, guys, that's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. Please give me a follow on Instagram. To follow me, my username is goodkarmasportfishing_FL_Keys. And you can give me a follow on Facebook. It's Good Karma Sport Fishing. And I just posted a fishing report for Good Karma Sport Fishing on my website, www.goodkarmasportfishing.com. And please sign up for my monthly newsletter. And when you sign up for my monthly newsletter, you'll receive a tip sheet. And I enclosed a couple tips in there that you're going to find useful, especially if you plan on fishing in the Florida Keys this summer. Again, thanks for listening. And remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good.